I'm glad you're here, and looking forward to you coming in today. And I know, I think last night you were over at Missouri State University to, I understand it was an ag forum or something, and you and Billy Long and Congressman
There
Long.
was. I've done that for a dozen of the last 13 years. The Anson Elliott and the Collegiate Farm Bureau at Missouri State University began a ag forum 13 years ago. I was at the first one, and I've been at all but one of them since then. And, agriculture continues to be the very strongest driver in our economy, but the challenges for American agriculture are great. The estimates are that by 2050, the world food demand will double from where it is today. And American farmers have a great opportunity to be part of leading again the response to that demand. They have a chance to lead the response to that demand. And just imagine that, in 2050, what would that be? This is less than 40 years from now.
Yeah.
We'd have to produce annually twice the food in the world that we produce right now just to meet the food demand in the world. Population growth, countries like China and India that want more and better food than they used to have, that are growing populations. And, agriculture is the brightest spot in our economy generally, and it's very much the brightest spot in our export economy, and hopefully that's going to continue.
Senator, Dan, let me ask you a question.
Okay, go ahead.
We're on the farm deal here.
Okay.
Senator, we've had a lot of controversy the last week or so about, especially it rings true in southwest Missouri and in the panhandle of Texas, about children working on farms. Would you kind of enlighten us a little bit about where that is going and what your stance on that would be?
Well, Dave, I think at least for the short term, we've beaten that back now. The president's view is that if he gets reelected, he'll have a lot more flexibility, and this stuff that the Department of Labor is for, or the EPA is for, or the Health and Human Services people are for, that they have kind of taken a step backward on in the last few months. I have no reason to believe they've changed their mind on that, but they realize that it's indefensible in a political environment. This Department of Labor rule where farm kids would be dramatically restricted in what they're allowed to do on the farm just didn't make any sense to anybody who knows anything about farms or family farms. Couldn't drive a tractor until you were 16. Basically, couldn't drive a tractor under that rule until you had a regular driver's license. You couldn't go out and get the cows until you were 18, or you couldn't work in a stockyard until you were 18. My mom and dad were dairy farmers. As I recall, the rule on our farm was I could do anything I thought I was big enough to do.
Yeah, that's
if either my mom or dad agreed I was big enough to do it. And then there was a caveat to that rule that actually I could do several things that I didn't particularly want to be big enough to do yet, if either of them thought I was big enough to do it. And I learned to do a lot of things, and everybody who was raised on a farm understands the value of that and the importance of being able to learn things while you're growing up.
Is this another example? Of course, if you've listened to our program, and I'm sure you've heard some comments, is I'm sort of anti-government bureaucracy, because I think that we've allowed the bureaucracy in Washington to get to the point where it just controls every aspect of our life. Is this just another example of an overreach by people trying to dictate to the rest of us? And I know, because, as you well know, I spent 12 years working on the Hill, and I know the contempt that most of the people up there in the federal government have for us in the flyover part of the country. Do you think this is just another example of overreach by these bureaucrats and their liberal supporters to try to control the American people?
Well, I think there's an overreach example almost every day. We had a vote the other day on the Senate floor to where the NLRB has decided that if you ever can collect the cards at your workplace to have a union election, you have to have it right away, within 10 days or so. That doesn't give the other side any chance to present what they want to do. The EPA had a rule last year year where they were trying, and they're still talking about this, how to figure out how to farm without dust, how to keep dust from going from one farm. They call it fugitive dust from one farm to another. The EPA rules clearly are raising our utility bills all over America right now, and the regulators are totally out of control. They're beyond hyperspeed. In fact, in that great movie Spaceballs, the speed above hyperspeed was ludicrous speed, and the regulators are truly at ludicrous speed, and it has to change. There has to be a cost-benefit analysis. You have to really narrowly. I'd be pleased to see the Congress have to vote on every rule and regulation before it takes effect, and I think that would make a big difference in the rules and regulations that go down.